beginning is a very delicate time. Know then that it is the year 10,191. In this time, the most precious substance in the universe is the spice melange. The spice extends life. The spice exists on only one planet in the entire universe. The planet is Arrakis, also known as Dune.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Hello, all you gigalos. Welcome to Garbage In, Garbage Out. I'm your host, Kelton, and I am joined this week by my amazing co-host, Grift. How's it going, buddy?
It's good. I apologize in advance to the audience if Kelton and I are feuding this episode because the Red Sox and Astros are currently going at each other's throats in the American League Championship Series. So we'll see if the pod can survive this conflict of interest here.
Definitely, as a for sure not at all bandwagoning baseball fan, I will fight you to the death for the honor of my garbage city, sir. Thank you so much. Joining us this week, though, we have just a packed house. We have Tony and Alexander from Minion Death Cult and Denis from Psychic Dolphin Garage. How is it going, everyone?
Hey, good.
Chilling. Glad to be here.
I'm going well. I took a...
Well, after we both said good, that's fucked up, dude.
I'm sorry. I don't say that I'm doing good because that's
now it sounds
grammatically
like
incorrect.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I forgot about that episode of 30 Rock where Tracy Jordan has that amazing monologue, really owning everyone for saying good.
I'm only doing well because I'm suffering through a migraine, and I took a 3/4 of a weed gummy to see if that'll help. If I suddenly fall asleep, we'll find out. We'll understand why. It wasn't because of the film, not at all.
I think my favorite thing was 3 weeks ago, I can't remember at this point. I had pinched a nerve, and so when I went to the doctor, I got a prescription for muscle relaxers, and that was by far and away the most fun podcast editing experience of my life. I was like, oh, we're just gonna cruise. I'm gonna start listening to music while editing this podcast. Oh no, I've made a horrible mistake.
Yeah, not a great idea.
No, especially not good. Like, while also deciding to watch the football game at the same time. It was not a good time.
You should only need 3/4 of your muscle relaxer. That's the way to go. So you have a quarter of a weed gummy just sitting there?
No, I gave a quarter to someone else. It was my boyfriend. That's right. Last time he was here, he took the other quarter. So this is a really bad migraine. So I took 3/4.
In my mind, it's like a gummy worm, and you've cut it in.
It is. It's actually a dick. I cut it up.
No. It's a spice worm. Come on, we have to stay on brand here. Okay.
The THC worm must flow.
So this week we are talking about the 1984 film Dune. That fucking amazing train wreck / masterpiece, depending on what fan base and what people you ask. It's quite a thing. And most of the time, I like to read premises up top for anyone who might need a refresher before we dive into our review and then recap. But I found two premises this time that I feel like describe very different movies. So I'm going to read out both of them, and if y'all could tell me which one more accurately describes the film, I think that'll help the audience feel like gauge as to where we're at emotionally with this. So the first one reads, this 1984 film chronicles the conflict between two rival noble families as they battle for control of the extremely harsh desert planet Arrakis, also known as Dune. Pretty succinct. There we go. It's Game of Thrones, maybe. The other one we get is a duke's son leads desert warriors against the galactic emperor and his father's evil nemesis to free their desert world from the emperor's rule, which is, I think, the hero's journey viewpoint of Dune. And so just wondering, which one did y'all think more accurately sums things up?
I mean, is there a secret option C where it's
worms?
Worms.
It just says worms over and over again.
Just big scary worms happen on a in like the Inland Empire. I'm not sure.
chill, bro.
Hey, it's mostly desert out there.
See, I don't understand the California-based references.
It's actually not mostly desert. It's a lot of desert. And there's all like lush forest and other. It's green out here too. Okay, we got a plethora of ecosystems out here.
That's great. The water of life has spread throughout via aqueducts all throughout the Inland Empire.
You got all kinds of ecosystems in the Inland Empire. You got bakers. You got you got
Del Taco.
You got Del Taco. You got Santana's. I'm sorry, Castañedas now.
Oh, it's renamed again because the family broke up again.
Are you serious?
I'm pretty sure.
I think here there's still Castañedas, but I think elsewhere they've become something else. Because I was in San Diego recently and they changed name again.
The San Diego ones are too salty anyway.
It's true.
Stay away.
It's true. It's because it's closer to the beach.
Oh, and of course you can't forget the most important thing of the IE, the Salton Sea, the water of life, as you will.
Yeah, that weird Vincent D'Onofrio movie, right? That's what I remember it by. So,
my opinion for the which summary is more accurate. It depends on what part of the movie you're watching, obviously, but the first like 15 minutes are definitely best summed up by the war of feuding houses that date back millennia. And here's, 15 names that you're never going to remember.
Yes. I was going to say it looks like a George R.R. Martin footnote that someone's reading out loud as voiceover. So, but it's not.
I grew up with reading these books, so I know what's going on. I knew what was going on the first time I watched it, but I can't imagine what it must be like to watch this movie without having that sort of background, because it's just it's the biggest fucking info dump I've ever seen in a movie.
The exposition at the beginning of the movie is like if they like took screenshots of the house diagrams at the beginning of the Game of Thrones books and then just like put them on the screen, like literally just like just writing it out there, like just showing you like text as the info dump.
It looks.
Imagine the opening roll of Star Wars if it went for 25 straight minutes.
Mm-hmm. That's like somebody's reading you the Silmarillion for 15 minutes.
This movie, it feels weird because it feels like so much of this movie is them trying to backtrack and explain what happened, like you had mentioned, Alexander, like 1,000 years ago or several generations ago. And it's bizarre. No one talks like a human being. And I know that this movie had a troubled production. We can talk about that in a little bit. But the fact that it was so chopped to pieces makes me wonder, how much can I actually blame the screenwriter and director David Lynch for this versus like the film editor and whoever ended up getting final cut? Because I mean, someone needs to answer for this movie. I just don't know who.
We gotta hold them accountable.
Well, yes, you could always blame the studio. Like that's the go-to. They choke the artist's true vision.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like, what was David Lynch's true vision? Like,
right, exactly.
More worm space dicks, more like weird vag mouth slugs that speak with gas coming out. Come on now.
I kind of have to agree. I didn't like about halfway through the movie. I was like, I've gotten like so much information with almost no information. Was this like whittled down? And then I look at your notes, Kelton. I was like, oh, okay, it was whittled down from a 5-hour movie to less than half of that. I was like, I see why we're missing a lot of information.
You know that if this movie came out today, like there would be a release the Snyder cut style campaign that would take over.
What they're doing with the new one, I think the Dune movie that's coming out next week, it's going to be just the first half of this.
Yeah.
So the whole dueling premise thing, Kelton, it's very on point, because like this really should be two movies, and those two premises that you laid out there is literally like the first half and the second half. The first half's like the Game of Thrones.
But I don't care about the first half. I'm sorry. Like
it's all just set up.
Yeah, it just It's almost like maybe the first movie should be the simple hero's journey plotline, and then the second movie is where you add the further intricacies and the shades of gray. Like that's like a time-honored tradition or something of how trilogies work. But maybe that's just me.
I really like Dune. I mean, for obvious reason, it's like the perfect book to read when you're 13 or 14, and the entire story is about what's this? A teenager realizing he's God? Wow.
Yeah. Totally.
But I feel like the first half, you're totally right that it is like a split premise between both you guys are right, between the first and second half. I really do think the first half is helpful because it is like the political, it's like the theoretical political education of Paul, where he's learning about cultures and about the ways to manipulate other cultures and the ways to control himself and both mentally, emotionally, physically, all that sort of thing. And then the second half is like the real politic of it, like the actual power, how the actual power comes into play. And I do like both parts of it. It almost, in the movie, it almost seems like the first half, the more quote boring part is like paced better and makes more sense.
It is because in the second half, when they're like, over the next 2 years they waged war for the spies, and it's explained like via montage of 30 seconds. I'm like, well, that's the movie I wanted right there, was guerrilla warfare tactics.
I want a whole movie of like Fail Son Paul leading like a desert space jihad against.
He becomes a god. We cannot call him a fail son. Like... Grift. I'm sorry. The second that you can, scream at someone so loud that their organs explode, I no longer consider you a fail son. I consider you an X-Man.
Yeah, it's the dream of the fail son.
Right. Yeah, he is the uber fail son. He is the very first son of the higher class to actually do something, and not trip on his dick all the way up.
I want to give artistic visionaries like the benefit of the doubt, but I can't help but think about how, as I look at this film's history of production issues, that maybe someone should have said this would be better as a TV show or like as a TV series instead of just trying to make it a 2-hour movie. Like it feels like they were trying to work backwards instead of just looking at it as to how dense the thing actually was.
It's so funny how literally they adapt the book. Like I've only seen this movie, I think, once before, a long time ago, but
one too many times.
I was like quoting along with the movie because it's verbatim from the book. All of these lines that I have, memorized from the book are just there on screen, and it's going with the info. I used to love that this movie incorporated the voiceover that's in the book. The first person narrative, the first person narration from almost every character that's in the book, because it helps like show the political machinations of what each person is kind of angling for and what their game is. But when you have it in this movie where you're like running short on time and you have to jump from scene to scene and from month to month, it really comes across as like a show, a tell, don't show thing, where it's like, I'm going through changes. I am now better than my mother. And it's a very odd, it's very odd way to do a movie.
Especially when some of your characters are psychic and you're trying to show that these characters are psychic. And then also you're just giving the inner monologue of other characters that are supposed to be their own thoughts.
There was not enough for me to like break what was internal monologue and what was them psychically talking to one another. It really, really threw me off. There was way too much internal monologue.
Nobody is telepathic in the book. The only people who are telepathic is Alia, who is such a strong Reverend Mother or Bene Gesserit. She can project herself forward in time to leave a message for her brother in his own projections forward in time. And there's another reference where the Bene Gesserit mother, the evil one, she says, "Get out of my head." And that's just because they're like linked through the Bene Gesserit lineage. There's no actual telepathy and in the book, and it's just so odd that they're adding that in there when it doesn't need to be in there, because it, like you said, it confuses everything.
Well, they also use the same sort of like head tilt and then slight camera zoom in to represent both. So it was really hard. Like, not the best edited film, maybe, or like, that's not editing. That's, just like setting up the shots. Maybe not the best way.
Yeah, it did feel weird to be like, all right, now we need you to look like you're pondering something. What am I pondering? Don't worry. Just stay still for about 30 seconds. That's all we need.
Yeah, I wonder how much direction was actually given to them when they were told, like, okay, we're going to do this afterwards in voiceover, but don't worry about it too much. Just like tilt your head 45 degrees and then have like a concerned look on your face.
Is there also anything worse than if they are reading the lines to them while they're, making their faces and the camera zooming, than if it's David Lynch shrieking out in his Midwestern accent the lines that exist in Dune? Like, I could not imagine him just being like, fear is the mind killer, just over and over.
I think it's interesting, Alexander, that you mentioned how literal of an adaptation of the book it is, because I've read just the first book in this series. I know they get pretty fucking crazy after the first one, but even like the first one, I remember it was just being like info dump after info dump and like inexplicable things happening. Like, I remember being so confused when like his younger sister just shows up at the end and starts fucking everyone's shit up, and that's just not explained in the book.
It's because she's a Mary Sue. That's why. So
I was perfect. I consider this movie a success purely based on the fact that it does show Alia as like a 3-year-old killing grown men, like with holding her blade up triumphantly after having killed people.
Oh yeah, that was that
was the best shot of the movie.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
I'm sensing a new Twitter banner photo for the podcast account.
Yes, let's go.
Yeah, it is strange because I think in a weird way, I want to agree with you, Alexander, that it is a success that it got made. Because looking back at the history of this, of course, they got the rights like 20 years before this movie had come out, and they had just been trying and struggling. And of course, there's the famous, I forget his name, director who came out, and he had everything all planned out, and he was working with H.R. Geiger and was trying to get all of the effects done, and he was asking for $15 million to make a 10-hour movie. And then the studio said, fuck that, fuck you, get the fuck out. And
that's actually a deal for 10 hours.
Yeah, that was my thought too.
I think at the time it might have been a lot more.
Like HBO Max would kill to get that sort of production going.
They won't let you make a 10-hour big budget miniseries. This must be 1984.
Yeah, the guy you're talking about is Alejandro.
It's Alejandro. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, Jodorowsky. That's right.
Yeah, there's a documentary about his failed production of Dune, and it's amazing because he's kind of an insane person. And then the idea for the film was his son was going to play Paul, and he had trained his son for like 10 months in daily martial arts to play Paul. He was going to have Salvador Dali play the Emperor, and Salvador Dali only agreed to it if he would be paid like $1 million a day.
Yes.
Know your worth.
He's on camera. Jodorowsky is on camera saying like, I never read the book. I do not want to read the book. And people are like, why don't you want to be truthful to the book? And he said, no, as the director, my job is to rape the book.
Yeah, that's like famous quote, right?
I think it's like it's
woke
clear
feminist
that
king Alejandro. There we go.
I think it's clear that like that Lynch liked the book because he seemed really detailed in a lot of things that were maybe something that like little minutia that we could have gone over and not really focused on. He also hadn't
read the book though before he had agreed to do this.
That's ridiculous to me. So he just is a guy for minutia.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then read it and was like, oh, God, I got to put everything in here. That's what they hired me to do, I guess. Or sorry, I should have been about an octave higher in my David Lynch voice.
Although it's interesting that you mentioned that H.R. Geiger worked on the Jodorowsky version at some point, because I was kind of getting some Geiger vibes with the oh God, what the fuck were they called? The Harkonnens. They're like weird like BDSM latex suits, those bubble ones. I was kind of getting H.R. Geiger vibe.
Definitely not that, and not Sting's Speedo scene that we get later on.
I have a few things to mention about the Baron, and just a few things about Lynch in the 80s in general.
But come on. Everything was fine in the 80s, especially while portraying certain lifestyles, Dennis. Come on, it's fine.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just like, it was really weird to me that the big evil guy was full of sores and used blood to kill people. And was
nothing to read into
flamboyant.
There.
No, nothing to read into in 1984. This being written in 1983. Also, this wasn't the first time in the 80s that Lynch was a little homophobic in his movies. There was, God, I'm trying to remember the scene now, or it was in Videodrome where they, of course, they're looking at really graphic porn that's where people are killing each other.
But that's Cronenberg.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Man, my bad. I'm
totally getting your vaguely homophobic white guy directors with surprisingly, inoffensive voices, based on how they sound.
I mean. That's
terrifying.
I mean, I remember in the book, the Baron was he was a bisexual rapist, basically.
Well, there's a little bit.
And basically, they took that and made just they queer coded all of the Harkonnens.
Right,
and
made
it part of their villainy.
The book was written in the 60s, right? The mid 60s.
Yeah.
Okay, that tracks. But I also remember. I was like, should I read Dune? And then I was looking up recommendations, be like, should I read Dune? Because it's a big old book series. And then someone's like, it's really when I asked a friend, they're like, it's really homophobic. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, but it's really long, and I don't remember the homophobic part. I just remember reading that part, and was like, no, I don't feel good.
That's exactly what you want as a sci-fi author, is throw so much at the wall that then the problematic stuff that gets confused. It's like a Where's Waldo of hidden homophobia.
I mean, it kind of fits in with Scientology was being written around, Dianetics was being written around this time too. I guess that makes sense. Weird
was copying. Yes, yeah.
We gotta love the homophobic aliens from the 60s. I love it.
That's something Star Wars didn't have the balls to do. Create homophobic aliens in Return of the Jedi.
There just wasn't enough.
Baron is really interesting, the adaptation from the book. Oh, for one thing, I think that actor is probably one of the better actors in this movie, if not best
definitely.
Actor in the movie.
Oh, he's going off.
Yeah.
He
best
enjoyed
role probably in the movie. Cool, you get to put me in wireworks and a fat suit and I spin around. This is great.
So they're in the book. He not only is the book homophobic in its portrayal of him as a pedophile, a gay pedophile. It also he's incredibly fat in the book, and so the things that make him float in the air, like his jetpack, magnetics, anti-grav suspenders, or whatever they are, they're just to hold up his body while he walks around.
Oh, because he has a gravitational pull to him or something, because he's just that fucking fat.
I found a new goal. All right.
So then they turned that into the movie as him being this dramatic, stage production theater actor who likes to float around and give monologues and spin around in circles with his arms open as he completes his dastardly plans.
This is it feels interpretations, different interpretations of the Bible. This is just a different way to interpret this character. As
it also explains to us what David Lynch thought gay people were back in 1984.
I mean, that was just par for the course for everyone, I feel, unfortunately.
They had red hair.
They had red hair, and they put their poisoned blood on you.
Yes.
I mean,
that's another.
I have seen gay people spin. That's a thing I've seen.
That is true though. Gay people
spinning part.
Gay people do be spinning.
When he spit on her, when he spit on Jessica, I was like, holy shit. That was you like see him spit on her face, like drip spit on her face. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I
it's
thought
real
her
gross.
name was Jessica. Can I bring up the fact that everyone has really fantastical names and that the main two characters are Paul and Jessica?
Paul Herbert fucking sucks with names. Like Duncan, Idaho.
It's gonna sound exotic on a long enough timeline, okay?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose, but it's like playing D&D with like elves and orcs with like fantastical names like Mirandalia and like Trogdor, the elf killer, and then there's like someone named Barbara at the table.
Yes.
What does Barbara do?
And Barbara's the one you have to worry about. That's the issue,
We call her Babs.
Babs.
Yeah, shout
Babs
out,
will cut a motherfucker.
Shout out Cowgirl Bebop, her first film role.
Real quick before we dive into the recap, two things on the production side. I'm sure everyone at least here is probably aware of, but anyone listening might not be. In addition to taking like 20 years to get the movie off the ground, the entire crew of people that had like 1,700 production members, they all succumbed to something called Montezuma's Revenge, which is just, people just like shitting their brains out to the point that they had to make an entire Italian restaurant on set, and they kept everything closed circuit by flying in food and goods and then having the chef prepare all of that for them, which I just thought, that's a fun premise for a movie in and of itself, is the flamboyant Italian chef that needs to get 1,700 pasta meals with spaghetti and meatballs
Where's
ready.
that guy's movie? Where's his documentary?
The true hero of this experience.
Are we smartest food? Because like you have to boil the water to make the pasta. And like that's how you don't get Montezuma's Revenge. You got to boil your water. So this is a really smart move. I would watch that.
Are we sure like a disgruntled production assistant didn't like poison the soup like during the Titanic?
They pull a Titanic where like everyone's on psychedelics and PCP just running around. That would be great. The other thing is that partially because people were just either getting sick, recovering from being sick, or actively sick, the production company had a bunch of people from Conan the Barbarian that was also filming at the time. They had people come in from that crew, help out, and then as that crew was getting sick, those people went over there to help out as well. Meaning, I assume that this makeshift Italian restaurant had Dune actors and extras on one side and Conan the Barbarian actors and extras on the other, only making this an even better movie concept, I think, that we can all pitch.
It's just people in BDSM gear just on either side.
Basically, is it future BDSM gear or BDSM gear of our forefathers? That's the issue.
It was just like this movie could be an important tool for the fight for the unions on the sets, because I feel like it's going to depict the grueling conditions here all the time. Going back and forth between these two productions, all your friends are shitting themselves to death. You can only eat Italian food that's been like curated by David Lynch.
But
what were you radicalized? I was radicalized by the working conditions on the Dune set.
I saw H.R. Geiger molding meatballs that then I had to eat. Do you know what that does to a person?
Yeah. You have to make workers' rights kind of sexy though, so it is perfect that they're like everyone's half naked or completely covered like up to the nostril.
They're wearing the rejected stormtrooper outfits, or the Emperor's Guard, whatever it was in the third act, where it was like firefighter outfits from the 1920s that people had died in, that then David Lynch then didn't tell anyone that the firefighters died in those. Yeah. And so it's fine. Just use them.
let's go ahead and save a bunch of women from the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory.
So the other thing I also wanted to mention is that while this movie was being filmed, the actors referred to this as a Star Wars for grown-ups style production, and then after the movie came out, has been referred to as the anti-Star Wars, in the sense of whereas George Lucas tried to make it be a relatively low bar for entry and ramp up with terminology, and then there's also plot structure. This is just blunt force trauma hitting you over the head of where it doesn't try and make things simple. So I ultimately, are we Spice Girls or are we Force Wielders? I think is what it comes down to.
I think it's very funny because I mean Dune is a very influential book, and the imagery used in Dune has been used by a lot of people, including like George Lucas, and it's just funny to have a movie based on a book that inspired Star Wars and probably had a much bigger budget than Star Wars and a better director than Star Wars look this much worse than Star Wars.
Yep.
Like that design is great. The costuming is great. The creature design is fucking fantastic. I mean, those guild navigators, the little sperm worm guys, awesome. I love those guys. But the green screen, the splicing in disparate shots together is like the worst shit you've ever seen. It looks like you're watching people ride a California adventure.
It does.
I do wonder how, were they also unimpressive at the time? Because I just don't know. But they were pretty bad.
I mean, those Shield computer effects at the beginning, that was probably groundbreaking for the time, because it was
the Minecraft cool, duel that took place earlier,
the Roblox duel.
I'm not going to knock that. I'm talking more about when Paul and Jessica are inside the cave and they're looking at the giant worm that's outside that you can see the crack. Oh yeah, and the worm is blue tint and the rest of the shot is red tint, and you're like, how did they not finish the scene, or what?
Did they not color correct it afterwards? Because I think everything before then was blue screen, not green screen, so everything did have that blue tint, but there was color correction at the time. They probably could have done something, but they might have blown the budget at that point.
Imagine you're being told, okay, you need to color correct all of these scenes. You're also shitting yourself to death. Which one is going to take? I don't know why we can't just do this in post. I don't know why I have to do this in a tent in Mexico. Fuck this thing. This is so bad.
Make everything yellow. It's fine.
Yeah. My God. The other the last bit of trivia to kind of sum up, I think, the luck of this operation is that one of the shooting locations that they chose was going to be at a dormant volcano, and they thought wow, this has really just the best vibe in the world for us to be filming. That was also a spot where people would just throw dead dog carcasses just everywhere, and so they hadn't done their research on that beforehand, and so the day of shooting they showed up and they're like, why are there all of these dead dogs here? What the fuck is happening?
Where
a dog burial ground? What happened to burying your beloved family pet in a little private backyard plot? You just you just carry the carcass up the slope of the volcano and dump it in Mount Doom.
Except it's a dormant volcano, so you're
that's what keeps it dormant. These are sacrifices. If they don't get the dog carcasses,
how many times do you have to tell you Fluffy needed to go away so that way the lava didn't rain down on us?
There's one family that's been kidnapping dogs forever just to satiate the volcano.
Again, I now want to see this movie instead. I could get rid of this idea in my so much more
It's
dramatic.
The hills have eyes kind of thing, but they're just taking dogs and sacrificing it to the volcano. But they're mutants for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think the meatballs were made out of? Is my question. So, now I know we're running a little long and people are pressed for time. So we'll do a speed run. We'll treat this like the third act of this movie, and we'll just blindingly go through things and skip over some very important key plot points. But
you're not missing much.
In some, basically, we start off with Virginia Madsen, who from Candyman. Shout out to another episode that we had going on. Just give like 3 minutes of just outright voiceover, including and I forgot one other thing, and that was when I was like, "Fuck this movie! Why are you trying to be cute at this point?" No, you did not forget that. God. But then we're introduced to the world, as Alexander mentioned, of where there's the House Atreides, the House Harkonnen. They're fighting each other. There's a spice guild, as well as the Empire itself. And then what's the pronunciation on those psychic witches, Alexander?
Bene Gesserit, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I mean, that works for me, because I was just going to keep calling them the psychic witches the entire time.
Calling them the Benihana witches.
No, that's too far on cultural appropriation. The other parts that exist in this movie, those are the acceptable kinds, apparently.
When it's explaining how the guild navigators navigate through space, like when it's quote explaining it, it's funny because there is like a hard sci-fi element to all of this. Like the spice enhances the guild navigators. It gives them a little bit of prescience so that they can see ahead in time in order to like move the ship faster than the speed of light, or navigate it rather faster than the speed of light. But that part of it is thrown by the wayside. You would think they would go with that very technical description of it, but that's thrown by the wayside to show a guild navigator who is like a little sperm guy with a vagina mouth, like floating through gas, and then all around him the gas turns into like an abstraction of the universe at large, and it's like, it's like the Star Child kind of, but with a weird little slug guy, and he like imagines planets around him, and then beams of light connect the planets, and that's how space travel is achieved, folks.
Of course, it's not a sex ed fever dream I experienced in 7th grade whatsoever. No, it's
like it looked cool. Like I liked the abstraction of it, but it's just like, how would you have any fucking clue as to what's going on?
The answer is we didn't. So I'm so glad you explained that, because I was just like, all right, cool. Drugs. Yeah. All right. This is cool. But yeah, so the most important substance in this world is this thing called spice that, can give people some basic level of powers that can enable space travel. It's the thing that the whole universe revolves around, and the Emperor is fearful that a coup might occur from this one house because the Duke is popular, and so he decides to send that Duke to rule over the thing that is the center of the entire universe, because he doesn't want him to get more popular. So not a great plan just immediately, it seems like, especially when the guild says, like, fine, if you're going to do that, make sure you kill the sun. And he's like, I absolutely will kill the sun who wouldn't have gone to the spice planet in the first place, but now is there because of this other decree. Yes, I'll make sure to kill him. Wouldn't you know it, things end up kind of going sideways for them.
You always got to kill the sun. They never kill the sun. They always say they're going to kill the sun. No one ever kills the sun. You got to kill the sun.
It's important, and like the justification that the Emperor had of like the Duke is growing too powerful. Also, like they have a secret army with guns that shoot sound out, these sonic weapons. And I was like, oh, well, this is Havana syndrome right here. This is
That's good.
It's a valid concern, I
mean, you do have to like mumble to yourself a little bit, but like, it's okay. And then it goes for like, it's not just a sound. You do have to vocalize it, which does make it seem like, it really does. It really throws you out when you're like, it's like little kids going pew, pew, pew.
Yeah, it's like if you're humming to pass the rock band vocals, but if you can kill people with that.
I had a friend who he was asking me about what I was doing this week. I explained how we were covering Dune, and he described it as like a movie that was normalizing autistic behaviors. With like, it will tell you what people are thinking and how they are feeling on screen, so you will feel okay. Also, the loud random noises that you make, those are actually part of a secret weapon. You understand?
We need a Quizzock Haderach who stims.
It's just one of those things of where, it's interesting to find out that Dune can mean so many things to so many different people, because that wasn't my read at all of this film.
Sorry to interrupt. The guns
No,
part,
go for it.
Like the worst part of the movie, hands down. Like,
because in the book it's different, right?
It's a total invention of the movie. Guns are kind of like obsolete in the Dune universe because everybody has shields, and so the bullets can't penetrate a shield, despite the movie clearly depicting a bullet passing through the shield to kill or at least injure Patrick Stewart. What the fuck? That doesn't happen. That shouldn't happen. But
also, shout out Patrick Stewart right before TNG took over. Good for him, ducking out.
But the gun, the like voice activated gun, is such a bizarre invention of the movie because it's going off of like the voice ability that Paul has, that the Bene Gesserit have, where you can like control people with a voice, but you have to like pitch the voice based on that other person's body kinesthesiology. Like you have to understand their psychology and stuff in order to pitch a voice that perfectly like causes a reaction in them, right?
They all mocked me for taking opera lessons. Now they will pay. They will all pay.
It's a sci-fi version of the Brown Note.
Yeah. They turned that into a gun who's like, the reason it's a cooler or better gun is because you have to talk to it to make it fire. Like I have no idea why they thought this was, I don't know, cooler, or like it's because all these big battle scenes just show a bunch of guys shooting at each other going, wah, yeah. Yeah. And you don't even have you can't even do an automatic fire on that.
Not only that, but like the having to edit that, like just the sound design of that, just bunch of grown adults going like, blah, blah, blah. I really would prefer to have that, poison.
Imagine you're a soldier and you have like a sore throat that day. You're like, it's not good times for me. I'm so sorry.
Single tear rolls down your eye as you write that letter to your wife.
Ooh ee ooh ting ting as you keep going through. So I had a question for Alex then about this Bene Gesserit, or however it's pronounced, the Sisterhood, because they control bloodlines. That's what we're told. And so they are able to do for centuries this, control bloodlines of going through. It feels like though what they're really doing is just being matchmakers, and that then if there's still these warring houses, they're just incredibly bad at their job, or is like the idea that they want houses to be in a constant state of war and turmoil. Like I couldn't figure that out.
It's kind of shrouded in mystery, at least in the first book. Like their overarching goal is politics, but also like human evolution. And so they send the Bene Gesserit mothers as concubines out to various houses to breed with, members of those houses. They also get like samples, quote, samples of DNA from like various powerful people. And so
hell yeah, trying to hit that white note, you know what I'm saying?
So that they can use that person's DNA in another bloodline that they're trying to breed for abilities, mostly like physical abilities. But actually I don't think it's in the movie. Jessica is the Baron's daughter.
No, that is not in the movie whatsoever. Yeah. So that would make then Paul like the cousin, right, of Sting?
Yeah.
Or his uncle?
Sting is his like
grandfather.
Because Sting is the nephew of the Baron. That was
but but we all know that that's just they're roommates and they never They never have any girlfriends or anything. My uncle has a roommate, and they always come to the parties together, but we don't really talk about it. It's fine.
just two confirmed bachelors. What can you say?
I mean, rent's expensive.
Is that why a box is considered the scariest thing to these people?
But yeah, like they're able to have such mastery over their bodies. Like they do these crazy exercises where they just sit there and like flex a small muscle in their like in one of their fingertips.
Oh, in their finger. I thought that like this was like a yoni egg exercise or something.
Oh, they can do that too.
Oh, okay, got it.
I'm glad I'm pretty sure that's clarified in the book too, so that's great.
They have no hair, so the dome is incredible. All right.
It's like brushed over, but Jessica intentionally made Paul a boy. Like when
wonderful.
She was pregnant, she picked a boy, even though she was supposed to have a girl.
Right.
And that's why the Reverend Mother is mad at her at the beginning, because she made Paul instead of Paulina or whatever. And
Pauline.
the Kiswats Haderach.
Because if I remember correctly from the books, like the boys are like historically like don't inherit the powers, right? Like they're inferior on average to women in
woke feminist king. There we go. See?
Feminist king Frank Herbert.
Probably also a TERF, but like it was in the 60s, so take the feminism that you can get, I guess, at that point. I don't know. It felt weird when there is kind of the fear is the mind killer, and Paul is doing that test where you get to see like an actual David Lynch scene, because I didn't know how that worked in the PG-13 movie of watching a hand melt. That was a pretty cool scene to witness. But that it kind of then it being like, oh, haha, actually it was just your nerve endings. Your hand is fine. I was like, oh, well, okay, I guess. There's no...
She would have really killed him if he had recoiled, though.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, I guess. Solid parenting advice. Like, I'm learning new things every day. What I'll do with my kids is, just hold on to it. So also the other substance that it seems like that exists in this world is a bug juice that makes people be able to do computer things or be able to do calculations. And I'm not sure what happens, but like it's space crack.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like liquid Coke, right?
Yeah.
This might get me to actually eat the bugs.
See, there you go, futuristic bugmen. Because when I'm watching Brad Dourif just kind of whizzing all around and then muttering something to himself over and over again, I'm like, oh, okay. And then it's like the calculations are complete or whatever it said afterwards. I just thought like, okay, so there's this other substance that is needed. Are computers not a thing? Because I didn't remember seeing computers, and so. Yeah.
There's actually a passage in the Orange County Bible that says, "Thou shalt not make a computer in the image of a man's mind," because there was like a giant war/genocide with the machines like 2,000 years ago, where AI almost dominated the planet, so they had to, or the universe. So it's Butlerian Jihad, I think is the name of that event. And like they're not allowed to do artificial intelligence anymore. So they train humans to be computers. I don't know what the juice is. That's like added for the movie. It's so fucking funny the way they add this like random literal shit. Like, oh, here's juice that makes me smart.
Yeah, it's the 80s, so they had to make some sort of mention of cocaine. Because I mean,
it's future Adderall, I guess, is what it is. Really,
because we see Raban like crush the bug in the little like hydraulic press juice box, and then we see like the Baron take like a shower in it. I think that was the same stuff. Like right before like ripping the heart plug out of like that red boy that they bring in, basically.
Yeah.
Like before deflowering the flower boy. Yeah, I picked up on the metaphor. Well, okay. I'm glad to know that I didn't somehow like have a stroke and miss an important 5 minutes of the movie somehow as things were going along.
That bug is very like Star Wars Cantina, like where he actually has a little container that crushes the bug and built into it. That was so fucking cool. I loved that.
Yeah, that rocked.
I mean, and that I guess kind of is something that also gets carried through, because I want to talk about like the worms, that because I think if I had to guess, I'm gonna imagine that the worms in this upcoming Dune movie are probably going to be like a third act reveal, even though they appeared in the trailer. If I had to guess, that we're not going to see too much of them, but the worms here, we see a fair amount of them, and they're like this giant. What is it? They're 450 meters, so they're like a mile long, or half a mile long rather. Worms that are just out there doing their thing, and it's objectively horrifying to me to see. But they're also the things that create the water of life on this planet with their bile, which I didn't know if bile was code for something else, if it was like stomach acid or if it was like urine or whatever. But
no, I think it's cum. I think it's like actually in the books, right? It's their cum, like, right?
Alex, you need to confirm this for us on this.
You want the funny answer or the real one?
Both, please.
It's actually kind of cool. The way you get the water of life in the book is you kill a worm. You drown a baby worm, like a small one. You drown a baby worm, and then it like the solution that it is vomiting up as it chokes and drowns to death. That's the water of life.
Jesus.
Hell yeah, I guess.
You get super high. It's you meet the machine elves if you drink that shit.
Suddenly that dead dog volcano doesn't seem like the darkest thing that we're talking about on this episode. The other big thing, of course, is people keep repeating the sleeper has awoken, which I think is fun, because now we will probably just say he has gotten woke now. Is just repeating
That's what
that.
they would say now. Yep.
Yeah, those crazy kids. And then also where the Duke is informed by good old Captain Idaho that the Fremen are actually not that bad. They're not these barbaric savages. There's actually a lot of them, and they're really cool. And, they could be really great allies. I just want to mention, completely unrelated note, in 1984, that was the year that Osama bin Laden became involved with an organization based in Pakistan that helped fight Soviet forces in Afghanistan. So, good times, good times.
We need a politically relevant Dune adaptation where like Paul is like Saddam Hussein's son, and he's like blowing up oil fields while like retreating from the jihad in Kuwait or something.
That could be a movie, I was thinking more like the idea of, well, if this is a metaphor for the Middle East, what would Dune's version of Venezuela be? How can we make that the proper boogeyman, I suppose?
I gotta say the Fremen, because Paul eventually gets like 15 like bodyguards, basically. They were all hot. They were like just these like fit looking like 30-year-old bearded dudes just in S&M gear.
Paul has a type,
I was like, he wants these muscly boys in these tight suits. I get it. I understand.
he knows how to wear the suit desert style naturally.
Yeah. It's because there's not really. You'd think there's a more obvious telling thing that we should be able to see from there, but there really wasn't.
Nope.
Like there was no thing that was obvious. Like it just. Oh well, you did it. You just gotta understand what it is.
Well, that's they are so literal to the book, because that's in the book, right? Is that he notices Paul is wearing it like the cool way. He's wearing oh shit, I'm gonna knock you down. Fuck, you're wearing the still suit the cool way, But it's done so fast, and it's done so like rapid pace, like we got to get through this part, I honestly have no idea how you guys watched this without reading the book beforehand. Another instance of that is like Paul saying, oh, just walk in a non-rhythmic motion and the worms won't hear us.
Yeah.
And that's the book. Like that is part of the book. But there's a chapter or like half a chapter of them having to like stagger and stumble awkwardly through the sand to get to the other side of a rock. You know what I mean? To like reach safe. And in the book and in the movie, they're just walking walking in an arrhythmic manner, and then they walk across at a pace you could set your watch to.
Yeah, it's a bunch of white guys. Of course, they're going to walk arrhythmically. So it's normal. That read completely true to form for me. No issue with that particular section. So then we get to, of course, where the Harkonnens attack, and so then the Atreides house is overwhelmed because the shields are down, those goddamn shields every single time, because the doctor was a mole or he was a traitor. It seemed very weird that like one of the three people who mentored Paul ends up being the traitor. There's no like sense of emotional betrayal. It was a lot of like, do what you got to do, you bastard. And then they kind of moved on with the scene. Anyway, the Duke has like a poison capsule in his mouth, and he tries to spit it at the Baron. He fails, of course, because I don't know why it's a poison that like you have to like try and spit like a viper onto the guy. There's a lot of like spit based attacks in Dune. I'm not sure how accurate it is.
A lot of fluids throughout.
Yeah. Like, why couldn't you just have like a bomb be in your tooth? That way, then like someone didn't have to get close to you. Is there any explanation?
No one ever said that. No. Said the doctor was like, you know, a military tactician. You know, he just knows poison bad. That's it.
Poison tooth is sick. Poison tooth is tight. Like, I mean, it's just kind of, you know, the old school cyanide pill. Like you're gonna take someone out with you type mentality. I like that. I think that the poison tooth is hard bodied. And the execution of it's really cold.
It looked like he ate like too many pixie sticks too fast though, and just like coughed them up. I've never seen poison.
Sticks.
No, he looked like what was it? Snorlax? Not Snorlax. What's the name of the purple poison Pokemon? Jesus Christ! There we go. That one. That's what he looked like.
He looked like a coughing.
He looked like one of the witches in that movie, The Witches.
Yeah. When they're like melting,
shoot gas everywhere. It was so sick. Yeah, no, it's actually because the tooth has the gas capsule inside is shaped like the root of a tooth, so it would pass scrutiny. And I don't know if you could develop an explosive that looked like the root of a tooth, you know, because they go over them with all these wands and shit.
Oh, okay, got it.
They could try.
Ridiculous.
They could have tried. Yeah.
Oh no, I've been found out. Quick, let me put in my shin bomb. All right, there we go. Taking everyone out.
And like,
congratulations.
I think historically, like that's like the cyanide capsule, like hidden in your mouth, is like a way for like, you know, like an anarchist terrorist in like the late 1800s, early 1900s would like commit suicide after blowing up an embassy or something.
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna say that there was like historical precedent to being like tooth weapon.
Yeah.
Not to backtrack too far, but we were talking about the like, you know, correlation between oil and the Middle East or whatever. I did like how the Space Guild, which is like basically the exporters of spice, you know, the exporters or the people, you know, most in control of the spice or whatever, were just giving the emperor orders. Like emperor of the universe or whatever, and the Spice Guild is like, shut the fuck up. This is what you're gonna do. I was like, yeah, that's cool.
It would have been really great if one of the worm slug people was like the vice emperor, you know, and was really, you know, laying it on real thick about what should happen. Although that would have been 15 years before it happened. Way too prescient, I think. Gonna need to drink some water of life in order to have that vision be accurate. But needless to say, Paul and his mom, they escape. They manage to join up with a group of Fremen, which who are friendly to them after finding out like, oh, they're valuable, which is like, okay, cool, I guess. And so to steal that line from a Britannic sketch, they decide to fight with the Native American metaphor against the American military metaphor. And, it was a great thing because he ends up emerging as this character, or as he gets a new name, right? He's no longer Paul Atreides. He's Paul Muad'Dib. Muad'Dib. I don't know. I'm saying it as whitely as possible, so that way then it's not me trying to add like a bullshit accent onto something that I'm not sure about. Because for the rest of this, I'm going to refer to him as Space Jesus, which is what role?
He's more like Space Muhammad.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's okay. Yeah, no, that's accurate.
He's Space Muhammad Atta.
And one thing I knew again from my discussion with my friend that he wanted me to mention, and Alex, it sounds like you know all about this, is that the psychic witches, whereas in the movie he becomes like this legitimate Space Muhammad with all of these powers, whereas at least in the book it seems like the psychic witches have spread out like a very generic Messiah lore throughout the entire universe, to where basically if anyone crash lands or is in a hard spot, you can kind of fit enough of the tropes of the Messiah to then convince someone that you are the second coming.
It's really cool because that is like the political part of the book. Is they go to the Fremen, and then Jessica's depicted so poorly in this movie. She's like the one who taught Paul how to fight. She's like the one who teaches him all the little muscle exercises so that he can like perfectly control his body and become like a living weapon or whatever. And in the movie, she's just depicted as like a screaming damsel in distress at the idea of her husband being dead, which is pretty unfortunate. But the first part of them with the Fremen is her like picking up on how that what you're talking about, the prophecy that has been seeded, deliberately sown into communities across the universe by the Bene Gesserit as like a parachute for if a Bene Gesserit lands there, they can basically pretend to be part of a prophecy and the local people will take care of them and exalt them. So she has to like hear and feel out how that prophecy, how that myth has evolved over the generations and what form it's taken. And so she has to like figure out what words to use. And
that's 1,000 times cooler. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but like that's 1,000 times cooler.
It's very cool. And so the first part of her and Paul is actually going through this change. He's ingested a lot of this spice. He is the product of this like, lineage that's been cultivated physically, for all these years. And he has this spice that's making him change, and it's given him prescience, and it's given him heightened awareness and all this sort of thing. And so he is also tapping into this Messiah myth or whatever, but kind of for real. He's like seeing it. He's doing like the beautiful mind thing and seeing how everything works in this society. And the mother has qualms that he's buying his own bullshit too much, and that he's like succumbing to the myth or whatever, until he actually does drink the water of life and survives, because that's like proves that he is God, essentially. He's able to do that.
Yeah. And that I think is also just a fantastic emotional bit of resonance about why the mom would care so much about the son drinking the water of life and have so many issues with that. Would be like, oh God, he's a true believer. No. Things have gone too far. But no, of course we don't get that. Good job, David Lynch.
In the book, he's in a coma for almost a month because he drank the water of life.
So you're saying it wasn't one weird Pink Floyd music video sequence?
Yeah. They just come and they think he's dead. But she can detect a very faint signs of life, and she deduces that he actually attempted to change the water of life and keeps them from processing his body, which is the thing that the Fremen do when somebody dies. They reclaim the water, which means they take all the moisture out of your body and like cut the flesh away and shit and divide your water among the tribe. She prevents them from doing that, and then he finally, returns from whatever the waking death he was in.
So that is a little bit more like Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to Space Jesus then. All right, cool deal. Well, Space Jesus is back, and now he's a worm rider now. That's like his cool sidekick happens to be this mile-long behemoth Leviathan creature that can go through all around, which I thought was actually kind of cool. Was watching everyone riding these giant things and kind of going all around. I didn't think it was good, but like my inner 13-year-old brain was like, yeah, all right, I could get on board with this visual at least.
It's very like Never-Ending Story Falcor sort of.
Oh, you know what? That's probably exactly like where it was. Now that I think about it. Oh God, Dennis! You've cracked a code in my brain. It hurts.
They take the moment though where he has to like tame the worm. He has to like hook on it. Ride it in. Like
he has
really
to
figure it out.
But then for a second.
But then it's like that's just how we do it now.
It's a Prince Albert, I think, is what it's called. Dennis.
Yeah. Now we got the whole squad on top of the worm, riding the worm.
Worms are cool now.
Whole squad warmed up.
Yeah.
He puts those hooks through the worm's nipples on its head. That's so cool.
Yeah.
God,
I love that shot where it's just like the wall of worm, and then there's just the tiny little paw just hanging onto the side, riding
along. Me and who? Question mark. Same tweet. Okay. So then, of course, the Emperor is arriving on Arrakis, and so Paul is deciding to launch an attack. I skipped over again the 2 years of strife that took place because the movie did too. I hope that the book, that's at least like a fourth of the book or something, them waging warfare, because I like, as bad a movie as The Patriot is with Mel Gibson, like the idea of Paul being like a Swamp Fox style space tactics to disrupt spice supply lines seems interesting to me, and I would have liked to see that. So the fact that we didn't makes me sad, but it's okay. We can focus on the fact that they call what Paul is doing a jihad, and I wonder if Denis Villeneuve will have the balls to call it a jihad as well. What do we think the odds are on this? Because
I noticed they said crusade in the preview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I wonder if it's going to be like they use it interchangeably, so that way then it's not as stigmatized possibly by the audience, but or whether or not HBO said like, listen, we can't have you do this. We gave you $150 million to make Dune again. You're gonna have to cave on this one word with us.
Yeah, I feel like going back and forth through crusade and jihad sounds like the boardroom meeting being like, well, this is the best way we could do it. Both words not holding a lot of good behind them historically. So I think they're like, well, we're just either everyone's going to be okay with it or everyone will be upset. It's fine. The checks were already written.
The one guy was like, listen, we'll avoid controversy by casting no Arab actors whatsoever for the Dune remake. Okay.
I mean, like, if they actually like follow through on what the books extrapolate as to like the effects of the jihad, it would come back to like bite that definition, because like, well, like they don't the later books like compare him favorably to like Hitler because he killed way more people.
Yeah,
and then what is Laban's realm but a version of a jihad? Like, Jesus Christ!
So hold on, I need to pump the brakes a little bit. Alexander, please explain for us. The protagonist in this story that we're rooting for, this plucky upstart, becomes Space Hitler Jesus? Is that the case?
Yeah, but like Grift said, it's dwarfs Hitler. Like billions. He's a mass murderer on the scale of billions.
Cool. but he did it for
Loving
non-eugenics reasons, right? It wasn't because he was like, I looked into the future and I saw that they would cause pain, so I killed them before they could cause pain.
Well, the second half of the book, when he realizes he is like God, the Fremen become like his worshipers. They become his acolytes, his devout, like the hot dudes that you were saying that are his bodyguards. Those are his like death commandos. And by the way, that's exactly what every Minion Death Commando does look like.
Those Fremen suits made by Hugo Boss. few know this.
But he knows that it's going to happen because he can see the future. So he can just see like his religion, like the religion of him is going to cause like billions of murders in the future. And they really
wonderful.
Yeah.
He's like, cool. Sounds good.
You know what? No more white guy gods. Okay, we can get rid of this.
That was really a big thing about sci-fi during the 60s, like maybe until about the 80s, was just like, we gotta find the perfect human. They have to be perfect. This has nothing to do with eugenics that we just like fought wars over a few years ago. Nothing.
Yeah, Paul purged all his thetans so he could ascend to the status.
Well, of course, that's what makes them perfect. Is that they happen to be like immaculate white men, but they don't subscribe to like racism. So they're like still that's what makes them perfect.
Yeah, they do get a lot of blue eyes though. Eventually,
that's the perfect guy.
Oh, God.
The Fremen are all blue-eyed white men. Like when they're clearly and I imagine they'll portray them more like this in the new one because you have like Zendaya as his main female cohort, but like they're supposed to be like indigenous like Arab nomads. Like
Zendaya, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're okay. All right. be a little fast and loose with the skin tones, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's space, so
yeah.
The space color swab said that Zendaya and what's it, Dave Bautista fit the bill for whatever reason. Gee, I wonder why. It's the color palette, not the actual race, I think is how it works here. So, needless to say, Paul, he leads like this big revolution. Paul's sister, as Alexander mentioned, kills the Baron. He flies out of an airlock hole that exists. You know, they love doing that in the 80s in space. And then the movie almost grinds to a halt, so that way then Paul and Sting can get into a knife fight. And I was like, oh, this is from Chronicles of Riddick. Like that's what I was like. I didn't realize that Riddick was stealing this scene from this movie.
You thought it was a completely original movie like I thought it was. I thought Riddick was a completely like nothing, no clues from anywhere else, just the pure rawness of the original content that is Riddick.
Yeah,
Riddick is
Vin Diesel's brain.
His D&D campaign specifically.
From his brain to your heart.
Listen, when you're what God, I don't even know what age, on a Boy Scout camping trip and you watch Chronicles of Riddick on the ride there, it's a life-changing experience. You're just like, Carl Urban, he's fantastic.
I don't know. For me personally, I think I'm probably speaking for a lot of Dune fans when I say the most disappointing part of this movie is the combat. Like the gun. I can't get over the gun invention because
so bad.
The whole point of Paul like joining the Fremen is that he has this like otherworldly mastery of martial arts and physicality and all of this shit. Like when they meet the Fremen, they do disarm them immediately, but the Fremen are like amazing fighters who rival the Harkonnens. Like they can take out Harkonnens without any gear or anything like that, but they best the Fremen because they're, she's a Bene Gesserit witch. She has this like, eons of training behind her. But in the movie, it's depicted, she like bumps into Stilgar and grabs him. And he's like, my God, you have the weirding way. It's like,
the weirding way.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. It's that's the space way of saying queer coded. If you have the weirding way, I think is.
And so when you see all these battle scenes, it's just like stationary guys going pew pew. pew, pew, with their guns or whatever. And then when you get to the knife fight, when you get to where they have to actually depict combat, it's like a lightsaber duel with a dagger. Like they're like
it really is,
and a little hip knife. Remember, Sting's got a little hip knife.
The poison hook. Yeah, like they were two roosters cockfighting.
It's just embarrassing to be like, I'm God. I'm like a literal manifestation of God on earth, and this is how I fight.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't he use his like little voice powers to just be like, Sting, stab yourself? Like, like, a little bit of plot hole there.
There was principle there. There was like it's an engagement. It's you have to respect it. Respect the battle, the combat.
The trial by combat.
Yeah.
That's the reason in the book is that he could use the voice to overpower him, but he wants to do it the real way. And the way they make up for how overpowered Paul is that Sting's character, Fade Routha, has a needle. It's not a knife. It's like a needle at his hip with a paralysis poison. And so if he scratched Paul with it, Paul would like paralyze. He would go paralyzed, and then Fade Routha would be able to kill him, and it would appear. So Paul has to like lead on the other side the whole time during the fight to avoid the needle.
Like he has to like fight Southpaw or something, basically.
Yeah. Hi, but it's like, dude, you're fucking God, man. You can see the future. What are you talking about?
I don't see like that. That's just the most difficult way to get through something. Like, some people
I just
like
want
to take
all
the
of
hard
us
way
to
through.
think though. What if David Lynch was like, you know what? Fine, we will make it be martial arts. We get to watch a David Lynch filmed kung fu in the desert movie. That feels like that would be even more surreal than anything else. The
combat was just really bad too,
because he's never been an action director, which I think like you need, at least if you're not an action director, like a solid second unit team.
Well, and we were like. This film was coming like hot off the heels of like kung fu movies being huge. So you would think like audiences were aware that combat could be good in movies. I'll
do a little bit of pushback on that, because like real audiences maybe, but like American audiences as the whole, like we had no idea that like it could be that fluid of a fighting style.
I don't know, because my dad was telling me about all the kung fu movies that he would watch as a kid in the 70s. So I think maybe the kids would have been a little less impressed than the adults who were like, wow, bravo.
I was just trying to think about like what like the Bond fight scenes were like.
Oh, those were pretty bad too.
They were pretty fucking cheesy.
Like just some stiff chops.
Yeah, again, the Matrix. Thank God for it, because it just let people know that you could do some things.
You could do it all in post.
Yeah, exactly.
The best combat scene in this movie is when Patrick Stewart is running into battle with a pug stuffed down his shirt.
Yes.
At Rock, I was like, "Fuck yeah! All right." He's holding a weird square gun, but he does have like a pug stuffed down his blousey shirt and a skullet.
The animal props were really good, are really great throughout this movie.
Oh, like the cat, the white cat that they have the Sphinx cat with a rat ace bandaged to it, like that made me so uncomfortable.
That's an invention of the movie. That's not in the book.
They don't have cat rats in the book.
Yeah, during the credits, it actually says several animals were harmed in the making of this production. Namely, that cat, just that cat, over and over.
There are a couple times in this movie where I am like, did I read this book? And that was one of them. When I was like, what? I don't remember having to like milk a cat. Like I feel like you remember that.
The cat was supposed to be milked, like to make some sort of
I feel like I would remember that from the movie, from the book. But yeah, that's like you said,
pervert. That's perverted enough
things they just added for no reason. They just added it for like it didn't help anything.
It's just like gay people are weird. Like let's make them do weird gay things, like milking cats.
Finally unlocking that secret culture. What color handkerchief is that?
What color handkerchief is cat milk?
Slippery slope. You allow one to eventually wind up with cat milking.
The hardest part about milking a cat is telling your parents you're gay.
Yeah.
Well, that then, Paul, he wins, of course, and then he explodes Sting's organs by using his magic words, which, why didn't he do that in the first place? Whatever. That would have been almost like a sense of humor coming from the film if there was like a big lead up to the final showdown, and then Paul just exploded Sting right off the bat, and then that was it.
It would have been like Indiana Jones shooting the big guy with a huge sword in the face.
But oh well. So future space Hitler Jesus, his name just keeps getting longer. He just then is able to step outside, and then it finally rains over Arrakis, because yay, I guess. Please tell me that at least was in the book, the raining.
Oh, no, that's
no. Yeah,
it's so he's just like, okay, now that I'm emperor, Dune can have water, and he makes it rain on a planet that never rained before. It's so stupid. Like, okay, a huge part of Dune is planetology. It's this invention of the study of like ecosystems of entire planets, and like the planetology of Dune is much discussed. Like Kynes, the guy who's the envoy to the Fremen, who first what's his name? The British actor. Anyway, he is a planetologist in the book. And so he's giving like information about the planet Dune and how you could actually transform it into a more habitable planet that the Fremen would have to stop living so scarcely and in such hiding, because you could actually, using these methods, seed plant life throughout the planet, and where eventually it could create a more temperate climate that would produce rain. That's like the overarching goal of the Fremen. That's like their religious goal before Paul comes into the picture. And then Paul comes and says, I'm going to help you guys do this. We're going to take power and eventually do this. He doesn't like say the raining word and make it rain.
Say the R word. Do it, Paul. Do it.
That makes it sound like the Fremen are like Elon Musk stands, like thinking we can terraform Mars.
I mean, it does.
I don't know. I really resonated with that final scene though, because that's literally just what it's like living in SoCal. Once it rains, people are just like, we can have water. It's
perfect.
Nice.
Now time for genocide.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's what goes on. Boy, so we now get to the final section here, y'all, of where we get to talk about whether or not this movie was garbage or not. And I think we all know where we stand, but just for the record books here, Tony, take it away. Is this movie garbage?
So no, I think this movie's not entirely garbage.
Okay.
I think it's like still kind of like something to put on. It felt nostalgic watching it. I think it's definitely a victim of time, both when it was made and the time constraints in this book, because they really sped things up like really wild, really fast. And it's not the worst thing ever. But it's, I'm definitely not going to like die on that hill. No way.
Well, that makes more than enough sense. How dare you take like a reasonable gauged response to this sort of thing?
Because I still like had fun watching it. I was also very high. Which
that's kind of like the right thing.
Bias. That's grading on a curve. So,
but I still enjoyed it, even for like the things that were painful. Like how most of the movies whispered.
The ASMR quality that existed in this movie.
That became like funny at some point and kind of like endearing. But so yeah, it's not complete garbage. I think it gets too much hate.
I see. And what about you, Alex? I really hope he likes this movie.
This movie's
I don't know what.
I think it's a really interesting watch. It's entertaining for the most part. The stuff that will like slide over your brain is usually accompanied by pretty interesting visuals. Those first 15 minutes that we're talking about of the info dump does have like a hot lady superimposed over the galaxy, and it's showing like a bunch of, cool images and shit like that. The props and set design are so fucking cool and interesting, and yeah, all the bizarre choices, like making the villain like speed around in circles around a shower in the middle of the room, go take an oil bath, and put plugs in all of his slaves so that he can just pull a plug and kill you. It's like it's so the middle part of the movie where Paul is like, where they're trying to convey Paul going through the change by him with the Fremen is the most boring part. But other than that, I think this is a absolute seeing is believing. There was never a movie like this before this. There will never be a movie like this again. Definitely worth a watch if any of this sounded interesting.
Certainly. I think that's a strong case to be made for it. Dennis, what about you?
I'm gonna disagree with my two friends here. The movie's garbage, but it did pique my interest enough to be like, you know what? Maybe I'll go ahead and read these books because I feel like I missed out on a lot of stuff. It's like again, like if you were playing D&D and you decided to come in halfway through the campaign and they just told you everything like in like a Post-it note, like what was going on. I was like, all right, I guess I'm in this. It really like I said, it sounded interesting, so I think I might want to read the books and maybe pick and pull a few little things for any future D&D campaigns. But
yeah,
I'll be the new Vin Diesel. But I don't recommend watching this movie. It's too long. It's way too long. It was maybe about a half or 3/4 of an hour shorter. It'd be a little bit better.
Many people would argue it's about 2.5 hours too short. That's what was cut from it. So I don't know. Consider that.
Maybe if it was
you covered
pure
53
visuals.
main characters in that short period of time. Okay.
If it was just visuals, then maybe, because those were actually really cool.
I like it. A bad movie, but inspiring you to look at the books is both a damning indictment of the film, and also probably a good thing that I'm sure Dune fans are more than happy if that's your takeaway instead. Grift, what about you?
I'm of two minds. I think everyone's pretty much said everything already. Like by any objective standard, like the action, the exposition dumps, the pacing, the acting, like all of it is garbage. But like they did swing for the fences with the visuals, and like having read the book, like it was interesting to see how they interpreted it on screen, and they did do some like interesting things with the way they portrayed the world. So if I were to recommend watching this thing, definitely take a lot of spice beforehand.
Yeah.
And by that you mean the gas station weed?
Yes.
Yeah.
The hillbilly heroin itself, indeed. Grift, I feel very similarly about it because as much as I love looking at the set design and looking at the visuals and just the experience of it, because it does kind of feel like a dream almost, and have that quality to it. I think if you look at it as like a franchise starter of a thing that, will it make you want to see this same creative team make a sequel? The answer is no. Like in that sense, as a franchise starter, like it exploded like a Challenger. It just did not seem to get off the ground even that successfully. Mostly because of, again, the 15 minutes of voiceover in the first 17 minutes. It's so steep of where it is something where I am, though, very curious to see what they do in this sequel, of where if they are truly splitting it up, maybe it will work, or maybe we'll go like, okay, I guess this is something that you just can't adapt, not well. So get ready for the Arrakis HBO Max animated series where everyone gets like real quippy as Fremen soldiers, and they have been
now everyone's gay. It's fine.
Yeah, that's they get to talk about that. Like, oh, okay, wonderful. And again, and so for that reason, I think it's garbage. But I find myself thinking, I guess I got to read this book. Because it seems like, even if it has like that John Carter quality where like culture and society has moved past it, and so all the foundation that it helped lay and things that got built off of the archetypes brought up in that work itself, it still feels like something that would be worth going back to and seeing all the things that did build. Because what other Chronicles of Riddick scenes did they steal from Dune? That's what I need to find out.
It's one thing I'll say for the book is it's just got so much stuff in it that can't be translated into a movie, as we saw, by watching this, that all of that stuff hasn't been ripped off. Like all of the philosophy and politics and exploration of different types of schools of training, that sort of thing, the minutia that goes into all these ideas in the book, you wouldn't have seen that portrayed in another movie. So there's still plenty of new stuff if you're reading it for the first time.
Well, see, that's encouraging. It's what people should go out and do. It's at least what I would recommend. But in the meantime, we have now reached the plugs portion of this show. So we will go in the reverse order. Denis, what is going on in your world? What have you got to plug?
Well, I am one of the co-hosts of Psychic Dolphin Mirage weekly show. You can check it out wherever you find podcasts. I'm also one of the co-hosts and the editor of the Dungeons and Dragons podcast, Dolphins and Garages. You could also find that wherever you find podcasts. We just wrapped up a really an actual emotionally touching episode yesterday, and I am gonna have a hard time editing it, but check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Anything that we can tease out for a Dune-inspired duology of episodes to perhaps hit Dolphins and Garages, Desert Dolphins, could be fun. So
that sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
A lot of work, and so that's where I'm the pitch guy, not the follow-through guy by any means. Tony, Alex, of course, Minion Death Cult. Everyone knows about that, or everyone should. But for the ignorant few who might not, tell a little bit about that and what else y'all got going on.
Minion Death Cult is a weekly. Bi-weekly if you pay extra
Hell yeah.
podcast about your Mima's genocidal Facebook feed. We cover a lot of right-wing posting, boomer posting, how people in the suburbs are processing politics in general. I just joined a group. Let me see if I can pull up this Facebook group name here. It is I do this sometimes. No, I can't find it. It said the name of the group is I am a proud pro-life superhero.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think I'm gonna make a meme of Alia becoming sentient in the womb.
Oh my god,
that's smart.
Pieces of information of the B'nai Gesserit mothers, and make a meme that says, "And do you still think this isn't a person?"
Yeah, I think that's genius. I like
that. Being a quirked up shoddy begins at conception.
I love that's we could tell what movies you've been watching, Alexander, by what memes that you've made.
Sporadically. It's pretty sporadic, but when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
When the inspiration strikes, it's a wonderful thing. Tony?
Just so follow Minion Death Cult everywhere. Minion Death Cult on everything. I'm Word is Bond on Twitter. Alex is Flildy on Twitter. We're both kind of funny, but the Minion Death Cult feed's incredible. Alex takes care of that, and it's great.
It is. It's a joy. And now we switch it over onto our side. Grift, what is happening in the shop?
Yeah, we're still running the Dorner screen printed shirts, and we've been going around New York City putting up flyers too, and a lot of people have been taking pictures of them. So if you see a Respect Troops flyer, if you happen to be in one of the 5 boroughs, you know who's responsible for that. Let's see what else we got. I got a tentative collab coming up with the Casey Jones podcast. We just did a really good baseball episode, because the playoffs are happening. Felt like it was time to strike with that. So definitely go check that out on their feed. And I'll be running merch for them soon.
It's what a time to be alive. It's baseball. The Astros are just 3 losses away from not having to be the ones to lose to the Dodgers in the World Series. So it's a fun time.
I like that attitude.
Listen, the Coastal Elites, they want Red Sox versus Dodgers, okay? As much as my heart may be yearning for Astros versus Braves, because then I can say, like, fine, root for the Atlanta Braves, that non-problematic team. Keep hating on the Astros for cheating. That's okay. Yeah. How's that moral high ground feel in this day and time?
I want Red Sox Braves because they used to be in Boston, so we got to defeat our former crosstown rival.
And it's not at all because being terrified of the Dodgers in any way, shape, or form. No. I mean,
I do want to beat Mookie Betts in the series. That would be nice too. So either way, fuck the Astros, go Sox.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
Does Craig Biggio still play for the Astros?
He does. Yeah, for sure.
He's the first guy to get elected to the Hall of Fame while he's still playing.
He's certainly on their payroll in a lot of unfortunate ways.
Sure. Go Astros.
As it relates to, though, for our podcast, follow us on Twitter and Letterboxd at Gigo Podcast. That's GIGO Podcast. Also, if you want, rate us 5 stars on iTunes and Spotify. We follow all those fun things. Also on Spotify, we sometimes ask questions, or we conduct a poll that exists. And so if you want to see what random bullshit thing, like how many dead dogs do you think David Lynch was responsible for while Dune was being filmed, feel free and submit those answers to us. The answer is more than we can possibly know. Yeah. That's actually why Patrick Stewart was running with the pug in his shirt, was he was trying to free that poor puppy.
The pug was the Starbucks cup of its time, actually.
So yeah, that's gonna do it for an episode. Let's all go ahead and say goodbye.
Cool.
Peace.
Thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, you got it.
Bye.
Yep.
Deuces.